unless it comes from the French or who else? Yeah, the French. And I mean, and same thing with like Vietnamese and all the other languages that use diacritics. You have a question right there, and then we'll get to this question right here.
I'm glad to hear you're optimistic, but what documented status of so many children, if there's a real barrier to higher education, they can't fill out FAFSA, and Oklahoma, and we're no longer eligible for Oklahoma Promise, and that's heart-wrenching. What do you?
It's ridiculous. The lady was talking about basically undocumented students. Students who came to this country at a young age. They came here without papers. They're culturally American. They grew up here. They went through the system. They went through high school, and then they want to go to college, but it turns out they cannot apply for financial aid, federal financial aid to be specific, because again, they're not citizens. It's a tragedy, and not only that, I think those people who oppose, I guess, financial aid for those undocumented college students. Recently in California, the gubernatorial candidate Meg Whitman said those students shouldn't even go to California colleges, that they're taking slots away from true Californians. It's ridiculous, and it's so myopic and blind to reality, because again, these kids, they are culturally American. And this is actually an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, because I have a lot of these friends who are undocumented students, brilliant students, going to college. I mean, right now they're just career students right now until something happens with their status. If we really, what strikes me most is that these are the kids who did all the things that immigrants are supposed to do. Oh, those immigrants, they don't go to school, they don't care about education. Yeah, they went to high school, they're going to college, they're getting education, they're brilliant. They're even working full-time in 2 or 3 jobs because they have to make up all that tuition, because they don't have tuition, or they don't get those breaks. These are some of the most American kids out there. This is everything we want in an immigrant, in an American for that matter, and to deny them help, it's unconscionable, flat out, it's immoral. It's absolutely immoral, and all I can tell those students right now is just hope, keep the dream alive, the DREAM Act, of course, and know that your cause is just. And one thing about this country, again, going back, maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but the good cause always wins out in the end. It might take a while, but it does ultimately win. And I can't wait for the day for those students to become citizens and prove all those know-nothings wrongs by shoving their diplomas in their face. I get worked up on that one. I'm like,
why can't we all just get along and jalar juntos? The Mexican Latino community in Tulsa is somewhat fractured, and it is a challenge to get everyone to work together. Coalitions tend to run along class lines, or new immigrant versus transcultural immigrant, etc.
It's the American way. I mean, think about the ethnic, or how would I put it, the ascendancy of ethnic groups in this country. It's never pretty. You had Tammany Hall, of course, the great Irish political machine, which was corrupt as hell. You had Daley's Chicago, where he basically set every ethnic group in Chicago against itself, so he could have power for decades and decades and decades. And so you had furious battles in Chicago. In Los Angeles, of course, we have that right now with the mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, where I'm from in Orange County. It's not, some people might think, oh, it's just a Mexican thing or a Latino thing. We're always squabbling among ourselves. But that's just how it comes when it comes to ethnic groups trying to get power. Especially when you're a minority group, you're already on the lower rung, technically, in the hierarchy of mainstream society. You're already on the lower rungs. Therefore, you're going to be fighting for that one spot of the pie. It does take, I would argue, a charismatic leader, somebody who could unite everyone together and sort of knock us out of our petty rivalries and our egos and all that, and tell us like, hey, we need to do that. And eventually, though, it always does come. In Los Angeles, for instance, I'm not from Los Angeles, so I was saying we, but in Los Angeles, they were trying to elect a Latino city council member for the longest time, in the 1940s. Even they had the votes there, but there was just too much squabbling. So finally, there was a coalition of black voters, Jewish voters, and Latino voters who all saw the need for somebody that was going to represent not just, obviously, for the Latinos, their cause, but the cause of everyone. So therefore, they were able to elect a man by the name of Edward Roybal. That same coalition ended up electing the first black mayor of Los Angeles, Tom Bradley. It's all about coalition building. There's never going to be pretty because coalitions, by definition, are separate groups getting together for one particular cause, and they're not always going to agree or see eye to eye. But because of that, that's where you do need the people who can rise above that. So again, I don't know the full. I got told some of the story here in Tulsa. We won't name names right now. But you know, my advice to those squabbling factions is if you truly care about your community, of course you care about all Tulsans, not just Latinos, but if you really want to see Latinos to rise in the civic life of Tulsa, you know, get your act together. Get rid of all those rivalries and those petty differences and, you know, get at it. Ándale.
Did you have a question?
What would you say to a politician that says that Hispanics don't vote? And how would you, or what would your message be to Hispanics on, coming out?
Sure. The lady asked, what would be my message to those politicians who say Hispanics don't vote, and what would be my message to Hispanics about voting? Of course Latinos vote, of course we do. Maybe not in the numbers that we should, but then again, Americans don't vote in the numbers that we should. The turnout rate for American elections is abysmal. I mean, like in California, we had our primaries, what was it, March or April? 22% of the electorate came out, period. That's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic. We're talking about the future of California here. Nobody cares to vote, and then everyone gets mad because, the politicians that we elected. Well, you didn't elect anyone, so you have no reason to be able to complain. And then, so on that level, and then for Latinos, just for everyone, we have to vote. But Latinos specifically, because our numbers in some parts, we're still the minority. Every single vote must count. Every single vote must be put forth to help out whatever causes you may have. And voting, I mean, is that not the most emblematic expression of American democracy? Is that not the best way to be able to express ourselves and to govern our own destiny in this country by voting? You have to do it. You absolutely have to do it. My parents, my mom was a legal resident, but she eventually became a citizen in, I think it was 94, 95. My dad, he was an illegal immigrant, but he became a citizen because of the amnesty of '86. Thank you, President Reagan, I appreciate it. Every single time they've been able to vote, they have not missed a single vote. They go in there, I help them out with a sample ballot. I tell them who to vote for, and so that's why, even though they're adamantly opposed to gay marriage, they actually voted no on Proposition 8. They don't know that. But they care. They know it's absolutely important. And so my dad will say, like, right now we're having our sample ballots. Now he votes by mail just because, he used to be a truck driver. He hasn't had he was laid off last year. But he knows the importance of voting. He knows it. He knows it, and you have to be engaged politically in your community. You have to know, and again, this is a message that goes to everyone, but since it's Ask the Mexican Night, talking specifically about Latinos, we have to know what's going on. We can't have one day, all of a sudden, some politician says, okay, English is now the official language, and people saying, how dare he did that, even though he's been talking about it for months at council meetings, at the state house, and whatever. We have to be politically engaged. If you're not politically engaged, you deserve what's coming to you, frankly.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the level of xenophobia in the state of Oklahoma. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I was very fortunate to have gone through the California State University Northridge. Rudy Acuna was one of my professors, and so I was very fortunate to, receive some level of education regarding Chicano studies and Chicano history and so forth. My question to you is, how do we, as Tulsans, as Mexican-American Tulsans, I'm an anomaly, Mexican Muslim, but how do we...
2 strikes, right?
How do we empower ourselves politically in terms of like some of these organizations that are out on the West Coast, MALDEF, NALEO, La Raza, without getting antagonized and doing it in a manner that's, conducive to empowering ourselves politically and organizing ourselves so that these types of legislations that do pass through the Senate and through the state, House Bill 1804 and such as that we, that we speak out. And
Sure.
we empower?
Yeah, it's coalition building. It's not easy. It's not an easy job, and that's why so many people get disillusioned with politics. So many people just drop out of it and just say, forget it, there's no way we could win. There's no effort that's ever going to be easy. So it's, honestly, it's voter by voter, and if you can't vote, resident by resident, getting people involved in the issues. If you're a parent, make sure what's going on in your schools, make sure that your children are getting the education that you need. If you're just a Tulsan, you gotta know what's going on the Tulsa City Council, I don't know if you guys have a board of supervisors on the county level, on the state level. You have to be engaged all the time. You have to be active citizens. And I don't even care in this case about documented versus undocumented status. Frankly, if you live in Tulsa, you are a citizen of Tulsa, flat out. And so you have to remind people of that. And I know it's hard. It's hard because we all have jobs, we have children, we have our own lives that we have to worry about. But ultimately, you have to care. I'll tell you this example. The reason I'm even here tonight, to be specific, if I had lived life the way I thought I was going to live it, I would have probably been a film librarian for the Academy of Motion Pictures Art and Sciences Library, or maybe for the Warner Bros. Art. But what happened? I never cared about politics. I never cared about really anything. Just go to school and whatever. But in 1999, by accident, I read the news part of the newspaper. I always subscribed to the newspaper, but typical male, I would just read the sports section and the comics section. That's all I would read. I wouldn't care about the front page. I don't care about anything. But then I saw somewhere that the trustee, one of the trustees for the Anaheim Union High School District Board of Trustees, which governs the high school that I went to, that he wanted to sue Mexico for $50 million for educating the children of illegal immigrants. That infuriated me. I had never given a second thought to politics. Even during the battles of Proposition 187, I thought, well, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not an illegal immigrant. Who cares? I am the child of an illegal immigrant. And it upset me greatly that he would dare go against the very students that he was supposed to represent. So I noticed that there was going to be a big council meeting, and so I went there and I literally yelled at him for 3 minutes. I had my speech ready, but I was just very furious, but that got me engaged. It was just that once I saw, okay, this affects me, and I've been on an activist path ever since. People are going to come to it different ways, but the important part is you always have to push people toward it, and you have to show people the concerns. And all of you, as residents of Tulsa, you have to keep your elected officials accountable. You have to hold their feet to the fire, whether you're liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. Ultimately, they're all politicians, and they're all going to have their own agenda. But they represent you. You are their rulers. You are their bosses. Seriously, keep their feet to the fire. You have to. You absolutely have to. And I say this especially as a reporter who knows that in some ways ourselves. We have to. It's easy to criticize others, but we also have to. We have to keep our community in check. We can't allow our kids to fall through the cracks. We have to, I understand, especially with right now the issue of undocumented students, but we have to push our kids to graduate. Through high schools. And, in some places it's abysmal. It's like 60-some% of our students graduate from high school. Yes, our schools are especially public education it's a nightmare right now because politicians are cutting funding and absolutely that, but we have to push our kids to do that. So, and of course, we're not the worst enemies. The worst enemies are the people who really don't leave, who really do view us as an existential threat. We don't view ourselves as an existential threat, but we still have a responsibility for our own community. And I'm not talking some pick yourself up by the bootstraps, libertarian claptrap. I'm talking about no one's going to take better care of ourselves than ourselves. We're the ones who we're the ones who can mobilize. We're the ones who can vote. We're the ones if we think, I don't know, again. If we don't like how schools are treating our children, that's where if you want to create a charter school, then you create a charter school. Sometimes we have to take issues into our own hand. And then once we have that stronger, that stronger pueblo, that stronger community, then we become even more powerful to go against those people who really do want us to fail and really do want us out of here.
Well, this question is almost the opposite of what you just asked. Not who are the enemies, but who are the heroes. And the specific question is, who do you like, or who would you like to see as like a new Mexican or Latino man or woman on a white horse, kind of pulling?
Oh, the caudillo. No, we don't want caudillos anymore. No more caudillos.
What do you think about Bill Richardson is the follow-up of that question.
Bill Richardson is so corrupt, it's not even funny. And I only say this because I have friends who work in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and I mean, it's cool and all que es Latino, that's awesome, but we can't accept politicians or cheer them on just because they're Latinos. We need to hold them accountable. Who do I view as those undocumented college students are my heroes? I mean, and I'm not saying this to just gain cheap points. I don't know how they're able to keep their hopes up, go through college, work their jobs, and not only go through college, but get great grades at it. I don't know how they do it. That takes courage that I wish I could only dream about. You know, heroes, I mean, heroes come in many different shapes and forms. One thing I would ask of you Tulsans, especially you Latino Tulsans out there, is to document the history that you guys have here. Sarah was talking to me earlier about projects to keep the history, but there's so many unknown there's so much unknown histories in our own communities. We should all know about that. I mean, who are the Latino heroes of Tulsa? Who are those pioneers of the past? Those first few people who set up their businesses or who fought racism, discrimination. Those first few people. We should know those people. We should lionize their history. We should tell their history to the rest. You folks, to the rest of Tulsa, then after the rest of Tulsa, the rest of Oklahoma, because then that's how they enter the mythology. I don't think there's enough mythological heroes in the American, in the American mythology, que son Latinos. There's not enough of us. Everyone knows Cesar Chavez. That's great. He was an amazing man. And then who? And then, I mean, it's a simple question. I could rattle off a lot of people, but for most people, who? Okay, here's the question.
You really want me to ask it? Why do so many Latinas have muffin tops?
Why do so many Latinas have muffin tops? Muffin tops is a it's a term used that I guess if a woman wears too tight of a shirt that somehow, they show their rolls. Or, they show little.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's nothing. That's nothing. If you think that's offensive, brother, buy my book and you can see some of the stuff. I think Latinos, it's funny because the most asked question I actually get for my column, people want to know, why do Mexicans always swim with their clothes on? Maybe it's more of a Southern Californian thing because we're out on the beach. And I think it's a thing that we're not ashamed of our bodies. We don't have this hang up with, you have to dress a certain way or you have to do this, that. You wear what's comfortable. You wear what's comfortable and there's nothing wrong with that. People want to make fun of how you look. Okay, fine. You can make fun of how, you can make fun of how I dress or how anybody dresses, but the person who's wearing it, as long as it doesn't affect them, why do you care? Why do you care? If you're saying that stuff, that says more about you than it does about the person. And if you're saying that, then dude, you got some issues to work on. Someone right there.
A somewhat related topic. Could have been more of a serious question, but I've had sort of this question on my mind for probably 13 years. And I've never gotten a good answer. I'm an amateur folk historian, and